I'm Michael Carey, the pastor of Church in the Wild. When I was about 12 years old, my parents had a lakeside home, a second home. We would go on the weekends. It was really a trailer on a lot, but we had a boat. My dad taught me to fish and how to use the small boat. And at the same time, I had finished reading Robinson Crusoe, the famous novel by Daniel Defoe. Of course, the story about the sailor who was shipwrecked and the only survivor on a deserted island. I was 12 and I was intrigued with how he survived out in the wild. But also I was interested in how he spent the anniversary of the shipwreck. Instead of grieving it as a terrible day, he actually declared it a day of Thanksgiving. And he spent hours going back through the past year, remembering all the ways that God had provided for his survival, and used the catastrophe to bring him into a deeper spiritual awareness. Because of course, giving thanks to God is the best tonic we have when we're struggling with loss, disappointment, or anxiety. Well, being 12 years old, I had this idea. When my parents decided to spend Thanksgiving holidays at the lake house, Dad, can I borrow the boat and take it over to the island? I'm just going to spend a couple of hours there walking around and I'll be back in time for the big meal. And my dad gave me permission. So I took the boat over there, and Robinson Crusoe style. I pulled it up on the beach and I imagined myself trying to survive a shipwreck. But then I started doing what Crusoe had done, giving thanks, going back through the whole year for all the good things that had happened in my life, all the ways God had provided for me. It took a couple of hours. And then I made it back in time for the big meal. And this became a habit that has sustained me throughout my life. I use a notebook and I write down about every month or so the things I'm particularly thankful for and how powerful whenever I'm dealing with disappointment or uncertainty, anxiety. It gives you peace. In fact, the Bible says, whenever you pray, pray giving thanks, because you're reminded how God has provided and how God will provide. This Thanksgiving 2020, is a time of disappointment, a time of anxiety. And so if you don't have this habit, I encourage you sometime over these holidays, perhaps on Thanksgiving morning, if you can, to go for a long walk if you don't have a boat or a deserted island, or maybe even just use a quiet place where you won't be interrupted, and to think back through the past year, to name the ways God has provided, the people that God has provided, to name them out loud, perhaps to write them down, because it'll bring you peace as you remember how God has shown up and help you to trust in how God will provide. So, at the time of year you're going to carve the turkey, make sure to carve out time to give thanks to God.